So let's talk about character. Character matters. When members of the Army profession, both soldiers and Army civilians, violate moral principles, the Army values, our ethic, the American people lose confidence in us. And then we, in turn, lose confidence in each other and eventually the Army. So, all we have to do about character is get rid of the bad apples, right? Wrong. The Army already has a way of dealing with the occasional bad apple. We have a disciplinary system for individuals. But if we are truly going to develop character in the Army, well, then the barrel matters too. In fact, it's more critical than the apple, because if the barrel is bad, the worms spread even to the best apples. We must intentionally develop character along with competence and commitment as an integral part of our leadership development strategy. We can't leave it to chance. It appears that ethical behavior, character, hates a vacuum. So in the absence of character, the climate gets filled by all sorts of other codes, creeds, and loyalties. Because ultimately, this all comes down to trust. It's the bedrock of our profession. When we accomplish the mission in the right way, effectively, efficiently, and ethically, we build trust with the American people, which leads to mission command. In combat, we trust that the soldier to our right and left has our back. But also on an increasingly dispersed and complex battlefield, leaders have to trust that subordinates will carry out their intent with disciplined initiative while accepting prudent risk. Developing character requires the deliberate alignment of culture, climate, and identity. The Army as an institution must value character within its culture at the same level as competence and commitment. Army organizations must create professional climates in which character is supported and can thrive. And individuals, leaders, and followers must share an identity as trusted Army professionals who live by and uphold the Army ethic. This is the Army's framework for character development. These are the three spheres that impact character: identity, climate, and culture. Here's the bottom line. Leaders at each level have responsibilities to develop character in themselves and others by positively influencing identity, climate, and culture. The spheres are interdependent and mutually supporting. There are no loners here. No islands out there on the horizon. Sorry, Madison Avenue, but contrary to what you may have heard, we're no longer an army of one. So think of this like playing Twister. You know, with the mat that has all the colored dots and you have to have your hands and feet on all the corresponding colors, except you're not all tangled up. You're lined up exactly where you need to be. And that's because, as an Army professional, we exist in all three spheres simultaneously. When you first start out in your profession, your feet are firmly planted in the individual area. You are both a direct leader and follower with a great deal of influence in developing a shared identity in this thing called the Army. You focus on setting the right example by upholding the Army ethic with your decisions, actions, coaching, counseling, and mentoring others to do the same. But you also have one hand in the organization and one in the institution. You have less influence than more senior leaders, but you contribute to climate through your example and by rejecting and reporting the influences of those who would subvert our shared values. You are always affected by the culture of the Army, but every once in a while you get to point out what is right and wrong in the culture through surveys, focus groups, and engagements with senior leaders. As you become a mid-grade leader, your feet shift to the organization. Now your greatest influence is on climate, and you set a professional atmosphere where all are inspired and expected to live by and uphold the Army ethic in the exercise of mission command. You certify your subordinates through education, training, experience, thereby ensuring the unit is ready for its mission. Of course, you still have a hand in developing the shared identity of individuals, but now your other hand has increased access in the institution, influencing Army culture through the advice you provide senior leaders. And with hard work and good fortune, let's say you become a strategic leader in the Army. Now your feet shift to the institution. This is where you have the greatest influence on building a culture of trust within the Army. You make decisions and take actions that affect the whole system. So if you set policies in place that recruit the wrong people or reward and advance results over character, it breaks down trust and breeds cynicism. This is where you are extended the most. With your feet over there, you have one hand here in the climate of the organization you lead, and the other hand is over here developing the identity of yourself and others. However, now your example is seen by all. With greater access, power, and influence comes greater responsibility to be a steward of the Army profession. This is about character. We must deliberately develop it in a way that our culture, climate, and identity are aligned. Because when they aren't, you get a farmer's market, an institution that attracts and rewards bad apples, or a barrel, an organization that spoils the good ones. Either way, it leads to a lack of trust. But when all three spheres are aligned with the Army ethic as our true north, then we as Army professionals develop and demonstrate character along with competence and commitment, and the outcome is trust. So, we've talked about character. Now, let's go look in the mirror and find it.